Hi, welcome. My name is Nathaniel Whitestone. I'm a co-founder of A Fairer Society, and I'm hosting a conversation between some amazing people. We have here with us Aneira from XR and Indra from The Alternative UK, Swarnalakshmi Ravi from the Inclusive Neighborhood Children's Parliament's global movement, and Joseph from the Neighborocracy global movement. Each of these people is going to do a better job of introducing themselves than I could do of introducing them. So I'm not even going to try. I will just briefly say that my organization, A Fairer Society, is all about creating a fairer society with people like this and hopefully with people like you. And that's why I'm here hosting this call, and I can't wait to hear more about what works in neighborocracy. So if we could go around, I'd like to start with you, Joseph, and then Swarnalakshmi, Indra, and Aneira, if that's okay. Joseph, who are you? What are you doing here?
Yes, greetings to all of you. It's nice to meet you all once again. And I am Joseph Ratinam from Chennai, India. To introduce myself very briefly, I was a businessman about 30 years back, and thinking that I can do something and I have to do something for the people, for the society, I started a political party. And after starting political party, I came into contact with the mainline politicians at the state level and national level. And after coming in closer contact with the mainline politicians, I realized party politics always works for power. And whenever we have the discussion, it will be always about catching the power, holding the power, coming into power. Then I was wondering about how this, this type of attitude can help people. So I started developing some doubts on that system of party politics. Then I started reading various great people, those who talked about democracy, about the governance system and party politics and all. And one such a great leader whom I read was Ambedkar, who talks very beautifully about democracy and the system of governance and the party politics. And he explains, even if a saint comes down from heaven and starts a political party to do the service to the people, he cannot change the system, and the system will change him. And he explains further how it is. He says to run a political party, money is needed. You need money. And to get the money, you'll have to stretch out your hand. Once you stretch out your hand for money, then you'll have to compromise. Then once you compromise, your intention of serving the society vanishes. Then you start serving the people who give you money. That's how the whole thing changes. And he says, the system will change you. And once I realized that, then I realized that I am the wrong track. Then I'll have to work on a system where people can be really served and where people themselves can be actually taking part in day-to-day governance. And while I was reading further, I read Mahatma Gandhi, and he says 20 people at the center cannot decide the political, social, and economical fate of 40 crore people. 40 crore, he means that was, when he made this statement, the population of India was 40 crore. That's what he means. And he says, governance should not be from top, but it has to be from the bottom, from the grassroots level. And he names it as Gram Rajya. Then I realized something, you know, has to start from the lowermost start of the society. Then when I was trying to do something on that, I was studying how we can do it. Then I met one person, a Catholic priest, Father Edwin, who was already talking about neighborhood parliaments. Parliaments are starting from the neighborhood. And I was very much attracted towards that. And then I went to him and I learned from him and I was with him for quite a number of days. Then I organized my own party cadres and my own group of friends to attend this training by him. I learned and questioned a lot and learned. Finally, I got convinced that the neighborhood parliament can be the best platform where even the last man in the society can actively get involved in day-to-day governance. And once I was convinced, I took it upon myself as my apostolate or as my ministry. And I wrote the first book on neighborocracy. And then I also wrote a book on the training manual, which can be used by any organizers in India, of any organizations, any field worker. Then I was running a monthly magazine for Children's Parliament for almost 12 years. And now I've been the master trainer, training hundreds and thousands of various group of people and organizations and teachers and schools on Children's Parliament and on Youth Parliament and on Neighborhood Parliament. And I also have given a lot of interviews on televisions on this. And there is a lot of sharings of this concept through various media. And now I am working as the, or I have taken the responsibility as the international coordinator of this neighborocracy. This is my brief introduction.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Swarnalakshmi, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My greetings to everybody who are in the video and as well as who are viewing this video. I'm Swarnalakshmi Ravi, and I'm currently pursuing my master's in international relations and global governance at Aston University in the UK, but I'm originally from India, and I have been in this children's parliament for around a decade. So if we travel back from here to 10 years, then I was studying grade 8 in a school called Little Flower Convent, which is for persons with visual impairment, where the concept of children's parliament was first introduced. When this was first introduced and when I came to know about this concept, I really took interest on it because I have already got a natural interest towards society and serving for the needy.
Swarnalakshmi, I'm sorry to interrupt. We're getting a little bit of reverberation through your mic, and I don't want everybody to be listening to the reverberation instead of listening to your words. And I'm wondering if there's anything that's different about your mic, because usually it works really well.
Is it okay now?
It's still going on.
Oh my God, I'm sorry about it.
No,
Video settings. Closed. Open chat channel button. Video settings. Stop my video button. Audio settings button. Mute. Currently unmuted button. Mute. Currently unmuted.
Now is it clear?
I'm sorry, it's going on. Let me mute and unmute you. Just 1 second.
Unmute. Currently muted. Mute. Currently unmuted.
Okay.
Unmuted by host. Alert.
Am I clear?
You're not clear.
Okay, can I join again then?
Yeah. How about we get I know that you've been introduced, you've talked already with Indra and Aneira, so we're just going to go to Indra's introduction and then Aneira's, and you'll be back. Okay, great. Indra?
Yeah, hi. So my name is Indra Adnan, as you know, and I'm the co-initiator of The Alternative UK. And it's a political platform which began and asks the question, if politics is broken, what's the alternative? And we've been going for 3 years because we came to a point in our political life, if you like, or the public life of the UK, in which the effects of a very broken politics were being felt very acutely. When we recently went through a process of leaving Europe, and even before that, before when we were asking the question about whether we should leave Europe or not, it's created a lot of division in our societies and polarized people living in communities, and caused a lot of unrest and uncertainty. And at the height of it, in fact, just before we went to the vote, a politician was murdered. And in a sense, it was the very evidence and a moment of really understanding the dysfunctional culture of our politics, which has the effect of dividing people rather than bringing them together. And so in the bigger picture of how do we improve our society, but also address the triple crises, as I describe it, the crises, the one that's most relevant, or people are most aware of at the moment, is the crisis of the environment. But there's also the crisis of our impoverished communities, where people have very little power to express their agency. And then really at the heart of it, the crisis of psychosocial health, the well-being of every individual. So the way that we're looking at it is there's a connection, a direct connection between the lack of well-being and the lack of agency of the ordinary citizen connected to the destruction of our planet. There's a direct connection between those two, and that the place that we would probably best heal it and reinvent it is within our communities, where it's possible to create relationship and trust between people. So our focus is in the alternative is three things. Firstly, we produce a daily alternative, and the reason for that is really understanding. I'm a psychotherapist, and really understanding the power of narrative and the power of what is the story that you're telling about yourself. What is the story that we're telling about ourselves as a people and as a nation or as a world? The power of story is very, what we might describe as soft power, can be more effective than hard power in how our future unfolds. The second thing we do is we work in this sort of world that we're here now, which is like, working within the system, meeting the different actors in the system, seeing what it is that they're doing, how they're addressing the problem, and bringing them into new relationship with each other. So we call that working the system. And then probably the most important and most relevant to our discussion today is that we build citizens' action networks on the ground. So the idea of a citizens' action network is really very plain. It's how to bring all the citizens into relationship with each other, but also into relationship with the solutions that are already available to the multiple crises. And many of those solutions are coming from outside of your own community, or the cutting edge of those solutions are from all over the world. So we call this cosmo-localism, how to bring the whole world into your community and all the people into connection. So it sounds very ambitious, but in fact, the things that I'm learning in the process, and that we're all learning in the process, is that very small shifts in our behavior and in our way of being in the world could make quantum shifts in the world at large. So one of the things I learned from you last week, for example, is the notion of responsibility with every child and with every adult. I mean, that shifts everything in my view. If we can somehow understand the nature of that. But being able to understand the nature of that and how to teach it and how to create an education that nurtures responsibility is our big challenge. So I think that's enough from me. We're very active, and at this moment, our excitement is around, during the COVID crisis, how many new connections are being made between people who are seeing a really other future is possible, but the architecture really isn't quite there yet. So that's us.
Thank you, Indra. Can I just check again with you? How is your mic situation, Swarnalakshmi?
Hello, is the situation all right?
I think it's not working. If I take you off the call and then you come back in, would that be okay?
That's a very good idea. That's right.
Okay, I'm going to do that.
Okay.
Come back soon.
Sure.
Oh wait, it says you can't rejoin if I take you out. No, I don't want to do that. Can you just quit the meeting yourself?
Yeah.
Stop. Videos closed. Open chat. Share screen. Record. Reaction. Leave meeting button. Leave meeting. Do you want to leave this meeting? Window. Cancel button.
Okay. Hopefully she comes back soon. Aneira, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Aneira, and at the moment I'm doing a lot of work with the Future Democracy Hub, which is a group within Extinction Rebellion. And a bit about how I came to that group. I was involved in their October rebellion in the People's Assemblies, and was helping organise the People's Assemblies for one of the sites that was taken in London. And kind of prior to that, I'd watched XR from the Fringes, but was quite impressed with their organisation. And then I was just completely blown away by People's Assemblies. I think they are such an incredible process. And it was my first introduction to them. And then I was kind of helping to facilitate them daily more. And yeah, I just saw this kind of really considerate way of communicating that ensured everyone's voices were heard. And from that, I got more involved in the People's Assembly Circle, and then also took People's Assemblies to schools. So I was a teacher, and now I make educational resources for teachers, and I've embedded People's Assemblies in a lot of what I do. And then by chance, I happened to, or not by chance, by hearing about a community democracy group in the People's Assembly Circle that had kind of formed as part of this Future Democracy Hub, sort of in response to the general election and a lot of malaise and awareness that our political system wasn't representative, and also it doesn't bring out the best in people, and just creates faction. So I ended up joining this community democracy group, and that was in December. And since then, we're working on a project called Trust the People, which is about trying to help grassroots and community democracy thrive in local areas. And we're creating resources to help people do that. So the resources are, some of them are focused on kind of our personal processing and our identity and who we are, and how kind of understanding who we are is a really important step in engaging with people, or before you engage with people, because we all carry our baggage with us and our biases, and we all have different relationships to society and to the systems in which we've been raised. So having a conscious awareness of that is really important when we go and engage with people. And also part of that unit is finding courage, because it can be quite scary to go and connect with people and strangers, particularly if it's something you've never done before. And then we've got other units that are on kind of working together and kind of supporting each other emotionally, and other ones on thinking about how you can reach out to people in your communities, particularly people from diverse communities who you might have no experience of, to ensure that that the kind of community democracy that's being constructed ensures that everyone's voices are present, so that it is diverse, and it's not just the same people who tend to get involved in politics and things kind of coming and taking center stage. It's about ensuring everyone is welcome and feels welcome. And then one of the units, which is perhaps kind of one of the most important ones, is about community people's assemblies and holding people's assemblies in your streets. And we've created resources to help people learn how to facilitate them, and so that they can hold them with people thinking about how to respond to the corona crisis or any pressing issues in the area. And the idea is that once we have people talking to each other and kind of building trust and resilience, then people will kind of have more of the skills to, I guess, be able to challenge the system and challenge this political system with an alternative, and with something that is much more kind of built on making sure that everyone takes the decisions collectively. And we're looking at a lot of the work that people have done around the world with municipalist movements, and how people's assemblies have been a really core part of that. So we want to learn from all of these fantastic things that people are doing, and then share these stories on our platform so that people can be inspired by them, and also so they can learn from them, so they can learn kind of what went well, what didn't go so well, how might this apply to our context. And yeah, it's really exciting. And we're also kind of the global, this kind of XR participative democracy group that is part of the global network is also really interested in collaborating and bringing people's assemblies to groups. They have a lot of connections with people in countries in the global south, and they're interested in bringing people's assemblies. So it kind of feels like there is this appetite for this community democracy, and for a democracy that's really empowering, and that is actually a democracy that does actually include people, and that does actually give people a say in how their communities and societies are run. So yeah, that is the kind of Trust the People project, and we're trying to kind of collaborate with as many people as possible, which is why it's very exciting to be here today.
Great, thank you, Aneira. And Swarnalakshmi, how's your mic doing?
Hello, Nate.
Oh,
Hey.
perfect.
Great.
So you were just telling us about your experience at the School for the Visually Impaired.
Yes.
Yeah.
So 10 years back in my school, when the Children's Parliament was introduced, I was very much intrigued. So my interest towards society and serving for the needies made me to join with this Children's Parliament. There are really three important things that I liked in this Children's Parliament. Number one, commitment towards whatever we do. Number two, responsibility vested with power. And number three, simplicity with optimum use of resources. So these things made me to be even more fervent in this parliament, which took me to join in the state level Children's Parliament as its finance minister. And as a finance minister, I was provided with both responsibility and power, which taught me the thing that children are not the future citizens, but are the present, alive and active members of the Earth community today. As Abraham Lincoln rightly puts it, that democracy is for the people, of the people, and by the people. This Children's Parliament was for the children, of the children, and by the children, which really intrigued me a lot. And that took me to do more things for children along with my peers, where I worked to introduce 1 rupee campaign, which is actually children contributing minimum of 1 rupee every day. That could lead to 7,000 according to our budget for a week, which could be provided to children who are in need. And we were also provided with opportunity to serve people who were affected by a cyclone that really hit during 2013 when I was a finance minister. All these things gave me confidence, and most importantly, the responsibility. And again, the government of India, when the Planning Commission was established, invited around 51 children to share their views and responsibilities, among which I was one of them. And again, I became its state level prime minister. All these things cleared my lack of awareness towards society and served as a beacon of light in delivering me from all my ignorance about society and about how people were living, as I was just limited to my home and school when I was so young. When I was a prime minister, I thought that this should not only be an opportunity for me, but should be an opportunity for all my peers who are also in need and who are especially persons with visual disabilities, who did not really have access to all these opportunities. That gave an opportunity to me to speak in United Nations representing India consecutively for 4 times, addressing in various topics. Like for the first time, I got the opportunity to address the Commission on the Status of Women on prevention on violence against women and girls. And for the second, third, and fourth time, I addressed on Millennium Development Goals and then Sustainable Development Goals, emphasizing the quality and complete education for children and persons with disabilities. And then I was elected as a National Child Prime Minister for all over India for 28 states. And now I'm here as a Global Youth Council member to formulate a World Children's Parliament and looking for the potential possibilities.
Thank you so much, Swarnalakshmi. So I hope that, like you, I hope that, like me, you have had a number of questions coming up into your mind. Let me turn that around and try it again. I've got a lot of questions, but I'm going to try to keep them to a small number in the hopes that I won't take up too much of the bandwidth. And I'm sure the rest of you have questions as well. What really comes up for me, something very simple, and it has to do with the difference between what works in neighborhood level organizing in India and what works in neighborhood level organizing here in England, or possibly across Britain. And the thing that most sticks out is, what does it take to bring people together? So in your experience, what kind of invitation is needed? What kind of an offering is needed to bring people together? So I've had some experience with this in the States and a little bit over here, but I think I'm probably the least experienced person in this group, and would love to hear what other people have to say, what brings people together. And I'm actually just going to stick to that one question, but don't feel that you have to stick to just one question. But that is a question that I'll hopefully hear from everybody. So I'm just going to go around in the same order as we did before. So starting with Joseph and ending with Swarnalakshmi. Do you have any questions for people, Joseph?
Well, right now I don't have. I may, in the course of time, I may get some questions.
Okay,
but I'll
great.
be happy to answer all the questions.
Great. So I'm going to go Indra, then Aneira. Indra?
So my question may be a little bit more abstract. If there is need and poverty, how do we engender responsibility? Yeah, I hope that's quite clear as a question. And not just to give it a little bit of context, that quite often in our society, there is a story around vulnerable people needing help rather than being the source of our response to crisis. So how do we shift that sense of where there is vulnerability, we need help, to every single person is a source of the change that we wish to see. So that's my question. How does responsibility arise?
Thank you, Indra. Aneira?
So mine's kind of more to find out a bit about the practical steps with forming neighborocracy in different parliaments. Like, how do you go about doing that in new areas where they don't have them? Or yeah, what kind of steps do you think you need to take to do that? How can we bring that to the streets of the UK, I guess, is my question.
Great. And Swarnalakshmi?
Well, my question is, how would we collaborate with different movements of UK? Let me explain it a bit briefly. For example, we have got this movement, Neighborocracy. It's a system of governance. And how are we going to incorporate this in different movements of UK? And is there any legislative process or any acts that we should combine with or compile with?
Wonderful. Well, so we got through that questions round extremely fast. Our answers, I think, will probably take a little bit longer. But I feel moved to say some things in response to that last one in particular. And I know that everybody else is going to have more to add on that. So I'll just, I'll put my stuff in. There are a number of different organizations that we're involved with. The Control Shift Summit organization, the Transition Towns Network, the Global Eco Village Network, the permaculture associations, and historically sort of Be the Change organization. There are a lot of these organizations, and each organization sort of has its own way of holding everything. And I'm just going to repeat the things that I was talking about with Indra earlier today. Each organization sees the world from a particular perspective and is doing its best to make space for everybody else, but it's making space for everybody from its own perspective. And so the question of how we work together, it's not just an issue of can we get people to see that there's a bigger picture, because there are a lot of really amazing perspectives on this bigger picture. And all of us see the need for everybody else to be part of it. The real question is, how can we take all of these different views on the whole and weave them together effectively? And that's a really interesting challenge that I think everybody here on this call is living into. And one of the answers for me is sociocracy. So obviously, most of you or all of you are familiar with sociocracy. For those people who are just sort of tuning in here, listening to the recording, sociocracy is something that comes out of the Netherlands, was developed during the 1970s. It pulls together Quaker consensus decision-making and cybernetic engineering, designing feedback loops and information flows into self-managing systems, and the science of complexity that was pioneered by Ilya Prigogine, looking at how complex adaptive systems are able to keep themselves whole. And since the 1970s, this way of organizing groups has spread around the world, starting in businesses and then going into nonprofits and civil society organizations and local governments of all kinds of sizes, schools, universities. And it's got a bunch of different offshoots, things like holacracy or Sociocracy 3.0 or Circle Forward, or, all these different branches that are based on it. But at its core, it's this fractal system for bringing together points of view from everybody who's involved and synthesizing those into a shared way forward that is experimental. So it's good enough for now and safe enough to try. And then we can agree to run the experiment, even if we don't agree with each other about what the best option is or whether this is the best way forward. All we have to do is agree that we can afford to try it, even if some of us think it's stupid. And that balance of the risk awareness and hearing every voice lets sociocratic groups move pretty quickly while including everybody. And because of the way that these groups are structured, it can allow us to include a huge number of organizations. So I'm putting that in there, not because it's going to be news to any of the five of us, but because people who are listening to this for the first time might be curious about what it is if some people say sociocracy. So I think sociocracy is an essential part of how all of these different groups that are holding the whole, the movement of movements, can collaborate. But there's a lot of detail in terms of further connection, what the circles are, who contributes which person to which conversation, how it all gets paid for, that I really don't know. So I'd like to, sort of put all of those additional questions into the mix. That's me. Joseph, your turn next.
Yes. All the four questions here is very valid questions, very, very valid and important questions. And the fourth questions, which was raised by Swarnalakshmi, we'll have to find a collective answers for it. And to start with the first question of Nat, you, it said the difference between Indian context and the UK context in starting these children, these neighborhood parliaments. It's very interesting. And in Indian context, by nature and culturally, Indians are more talkative. They like to talk to people. Even strangers, they will like to talk. Only very lately, because of the type of people have become more, money-centered and job-centered and family-centered and all that. Now, especially in the urban areas, people have become more closed. Otherwise, people are very, very, even in the open when they walk, they will talk hi, with unminding of what is happening around, they not bother whatever it is. So they're very free. So by nature they are, by culturally. So when we talk about something new, people listen to. And they are very happy to listen to. They ask questions. Then if they feel that it is nice, they very easily come forward, to do their own bit. But I don't say that it is not the same in UK, but the situation is slightly different there, because people have become more closed. They want to keep up their own privacy, and they don't want others to get into their own personal space and all that, because we don't blame them, because as I observed in my last trip, I found people are so busy. They work for 12 hours, 13 hours. Then they have very little time for themselves. So that is one of the reasons they cannot open their space for others, because they don't have time for it. The main problem is people who don't have time, because if they try to spend some little time extra for their own selves, then paying their bills will be a very big problem. Paying their insurances will be very big problem, because living is very costly there. Everything is costly. They will have to keep on making money for it. So they cannot spare even little time for other things. So what happens, how we can make people bring together is when people face some crisis, people like to talk to the people next to them about the crisis. Until then, they don't want, because they are comfortable on their own way, and it goes on like that. And they just built a small, a wall around them, because they're busy with so many things and they don't want to waste their time. But when there is a crisis, which is common to that particular area or a particular group of people, then immediately they look for somebody to talk to. For example, now the present situation, all lockdown. And now, as I told you the last week, I am receiving many messages from many people that they realize the importance of the neighbors now. They realize the need of the neighbors now, because now they're locked. Even for little things, especially those people, those who do not have any help, or the elders, the older people, those who live alone, they need somebody from the neighborhood to help them. And mental health issues, as we were discussing the other day, is a very important factor. Somebody needs to talk to them. Somebody needs to listen to them. And if somebody is there ready to listen to people, and people will come out of the stress what they have, and automatically their mental health issues will improve. So the need in this situation in Indian context is different. The need in UK or European context is different. But in both the cases, it is required that people living in the same area, from the same neighborhood, come together to share their concerns, at least to first to start with, to know each other, to build their relationship and share their concerns, caring for each other. This all is needed. And sharing not only the financial aspect of the thing, material part of the thing, sharing their time, their talent, their knowledge, their information. So many things can be shared with the neighbors. So the context there is bit different, but when there is some crisis, people always tend to come together. And we need not wait for some crisis to happen for neighbors to come together. There should be some initiative from from somebody to start creating this work. Meeting the neighbors, saying hello. I used to say this, when you knock the door of the neighbor may find it very strange that somebody is knocking the door and saying hello. Nobody knocks somebody's door to say hello. But I tell them, please go and knock the door of your neighbor and say hello, hi, give a good smile. Say that you are living in the same building, in the ground floor, on the upper floor, or whichever floor. You introduce yourself. And in the first instance, that person may just shut the door on your face. It doesn't matter. Give a big thanks and come off. And go next day, knock the door and say hi and give a bigger smile. And say, I am so and so. And let him close his door on your face. Doesn't matter. Again, say big thanks and come off. Do it 3 times. Do it 4 times. And the 5th time, definitely, however hard that person is, will try to say, okay, my dear man, what do you want from me? Then you start with saying, I don't want anything from you. I just wanted to say hello to you. That's all. And I wanted to invite you to my home to have a cup of coffee. Please, will you come? I will share some coffee with you. I like to share things with people. Start with this. Try to show the real concern for the other person. Then it opens up. Humans are human. And everyone is good people. Everyone is good people, good person. But there is no opportunity for them to open up. Now you create an opportunity that they will open up. Once they open up, that's the end of it. Both of you go together to the third house, knock the door, say, hi, we live here together. That's how we'll have to organize. Then when something happens, easily they connect to each other and say, okay, this is what is happening. What shall we do? So far, they don't have this opportunity. They are just, closed with themselves. I don't know. They don't know whom to contact. Perhaps the corporation they call, or the police they call, or some other department they call, those who are far away from them. But the next door, there may be a doctor. The next door, there may be a doctor whose help you can immediately take if you know that person. So for this, in this context, the need is the same. The need of coming together is the same. And humans are the same everywhere. Everywhere there, people are very good. People are very good. Because we have the starting trouble. I call it starting trouble, You say, who will start this? See, I want to follow the traffic. Yes. But when I am on the road, I see everyone breaking the rule of the traffic. Then me alone, what I am going to do by following the traffic? So you get demotivated because everyone doesn't follow. And now, when there is people coming together, you decide to follow the rule, then one section of the society starts following the rule, then that becomes a motivating factor for others. That's how we connect. So connecting is very, very simple and very easy. Only thing is you'll have to break ourselves free. That ice breaking practice has to happen with every family in the neighborhood. So I hope I have answered the first question. The second question is very, very interesting question, because poverty is one of the worst problem the world faces today. And how this neighborhood parliament can address the question of poverty. And from my young age, I've been listening to this political jargon called Garibi Hatao, or eradicate poverty. We call it in India, Garibi Hatao. In English, we call it eradicate poverty. And any government which comes to power, they say we will eradicate poverty. But the depth of poverty and the amount of poverty is keep on increasing. More and more people become poor. And it has become only a waste jargon, slogan, a political slogan. But whereas in the neighborhood initiatives, when there is a structured neighborhood, I can prove that 100% poverty can be eradicated in few months' time. And now I'll give you one example for Indra and Aneira also. For example, there is a neighborhood fully structured, having their regular meeting, systematic meeting. And the role of the finance minister is to ensure that there is no poverty in the neighborhood. There are other roles also, but the primary work, role, responsibility of the finance minister in the neighborhood is to ensure that poverty is eradicated and nobody lives a poor person there in the neighborhood. Everyone has enough decent income. Now, in that case, the finance minister takes a survey in the neighborhood and puts in the meeting forward for discussion, saying that, see, in my survey, according to the criteria, this criteria and this criteria, this parameter, I found 5 people having less income. 5 people are poor. 5 families are poor. So what shall we do about it? Now the whole group discusses that. And there cannot be a faulty survey. The data cannot be a false one. Why? Because it is all in the neighborhood. Everyone is living in the neighborhood. They know the truth. They know each other and they know the truth. So now these 5 people, and those 5 people are part of this neighborhood parliament. They are not away from that. They are part of the neighborhood parliament. So when the data is put forward, they say, yes, we have this much income. And sometimes the income goes little less or little more, but not more than this. So we find it difficult to manage our families. Okay. Once it is finalized, they study the possibilities. How to ensure that these families earn little more than what they earn now. So one example I will give you. Everyone says, the finance minister proposes an idea and everyone agrees to. And the idea is, one of the poor families will start supplying milk to all the 30 families. And now every family buys the milk from the store, from the supermarket. And now they pass a resolution that they will not buy the milk from the supermarket, but they will buy the milk from that particular family whom they fix. Now the family says, okay, I'm so happy to supply milk to all the 30 families, but I don't have cows. Oh, I see. Now in that case, all the 30 families decide to give a guarantee to this family to take a bank loan to buy cows. And they have to buy 3 or 4 cows because continuous supply has to be there. So to buy 3 or 4 cows, they may need about, say, 1 lakh rupee. That is 100,000 rupees or 150,000 rupees. And if that particular family goes to the bank, definitely they will not give, because the poor family, they are very poor and they cannot give any guarantee and all. Now in this system, all the 30 families stand as guarantee for the loan which is provided by the bank to that family. Now, if 30 families provide the guarantee, definitely the bank will give loan to that family to buy 3 cows. Now they bought the cows. After buying the cow, they insure the cow. If something happens to the cow, that they can get back the insurance money and pay back the loan. So nothing will be a loss. So now they start supplying the milk for 30 families. Now, for example, if each family buys 1 liter of milk every day from the supermarket at the rate of 50 rupees, now they say, now can you supply the milk to us 1 liter at the rate of 45 rupees? And definitely they can supply for 45 rupees. And if they supply at the 45 rupees rate per liter, each family gains 5 rupees by getting the milk from this person than getting the milk from the supermarket. Second, the supermarket milk quality, the people don't know. People don't know from where they source and how they process and how it is packed and all. But when they buy the milk from this neighbor, one of his neighbor, they know the quality. And if there is something wrong with the quality, in the next meeting, the quality of the milk will be discussed. So they ensure that that family, particular family which supplies milk, ensures that they give the quality milk. So with this arrangement, every family gains money and gets the quality milk. And this family, suppose if they sell it for 45 rupees per liter, their profit we fix as 10 rupees. 35 rupees goes for the expenses of taking care of the cow, feeding the cow and all these things. And if that family gets 10 rupees per liter per day for 30 liters, that family gets 300 rupees. Per day, if that family gets 300 rupees, per month it is 9,000 rupees. And he cannot shy away from paying the loan to the bank, because the finance minister will keep a track. Okay, my dear man, have you paid this month the bank loan due? If not paid, please ensure that you pay it. So it is a collective action. And if 9,000 rupees if a family gets out of this supplying milk alone, definitely it is a good money, and the person, that family comes out of poverty. Definitely. And not only that person will supply milk, that family will supply buttermilk, ghee, butter, then they will sell the cow dung for manure, they will sell that urine, cow urine for panchakavyam, for natural manure and all that. This all. So they don't get only 9,000, they will get approximately 15,000 rupees profit per month. And if they get 15,000 rupees profit per month by this system, by this practice, definitely they are no more poor. They can come out of poverty. And similarly to the next family, the whole 30, the parliament decides, and the 30 family decide, okay, now we will buy vegetables only from this family, not from the supermarket. They pass a resolution and they abide by that. And the second family starts supplying vegetables to all these 30 families, and they get their money, they come out of poverty. And the third family, they supply groceries for all the 30 families. And the fourth family, they supply the mutton, chicken, egg, and all that, all the non-vegetarian items, all these. So if this system is organized properly, for that, the precondition is the neighborhood parliament has to be established. A proper meeting, a system of operation has to take place. So in the meeting, they pass resolutions and they abide by the resolutions. And if it happens something like this, poverty can be eradicated. Indra? Does it sound utopian?
Does it sound utopian?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does, yes.
Okay.
And I'm following it and enjoying it very much and learning from it. And if this is a round of answers rather than further questions, my answer to the questions of how do we collaborate and how do we bring this movement together,
Yes.
it would be through doing what we're doing now, because I'm really able to appreciate the fractal elements of what you're bringing. So what I mean by that is there are enough patterns in what you're describing that I could imagine appearing as well in our local communities. But at the same time, when they start to take hold, they will probably look very different from the way it looks in your community. Yes. But the essence of it, the principles that you're describing are absolutely the same, because I think they're human principles. So it's the movement from the I to the we, and understanding the interdependency of those two things. That is simply just true of life. There is no thing such as, man is an island, is the way we describe it, in the UK. We are all codependent and interdependent. So it's being able to really recognize that one person's need is another person's generosity or another person's offering. That the two things are always co-originating. But it's how to bring those things together will be different in each country. So it's really cultivating the ability to listen without feeling what's the word for it? To be able to move across boundaries without feeling competing senses of ownership. So the fact that you'll be slightly different should not make me feel less or more, but to allow the difference and to appreciate what's common between us, but to allow the difference at the same time. And I think from a global point of view, it's very, very important culturally that each country can own its own flowering of democracy, because it will be so very different in different countries. You know, I think there is something deeply common between India and the UK, which means we'll be able to collaborate quite easily. But if we then move to China or to even parts of the United States, or we might move to Africa, we'll have to be even more open to the differences as well as the commonalities. And the differences will be socially constructed. But what will be at the heart of it will be a common humanity or a common dynamics, you know, which is really spiritual in a sense.
Yes.
You know, the oneness of things that appear binary, right? So it's all of that makes me feel excited, because we can now have these conversations, you know, in ways. To be on Zoom together is not to be in a high pressure situation, really. It's to be able to listen, and just being able to listen to you for some time, or being able to listen to Swarnalakshmi and hear about your journey, Swarnalakshmi, is incredible. So it's a whole mixture of, you know, the way we offer experience, but also theory. It's just, I'm still sitting here very sovereign. You know, I'm sitting here sovereign in front of my computer. I can hear and I can absorb, and I don't feel obliged to do more than listen, but I'm able to absorb so much. So my only nervousness would be, you know, when one country moves to another and tries to export their, you know, their insight. You know, it's like, do it this way. You know, like that's, for me, that's the old way. You know, the way that the UK or maybe America continues to tell the whole world, you know, we know how to do this. To me, that's quite ignorant. You know, it's being able to offer something the way we're doing now, and then be able to take what's needed, and then to share again what's offered between us is how I think it will go very fast. And even within a society. So the way that, you know, for me in the UK, to listen and to see the way that they're doing it from, for example, Extinction Rebellion would be different from the way they were doing it in, you know, different parts of the country. But there's enough in common, yes, for us to feel we're in the same space together somehow.
Yes.
And it's that bigger space, and not anonymous, right? So making relationship is the thing. For me to spend time, you know, in giving attention to somebody else's gift is going to change me forever. You know, so that's the experience of it. So yeah, that's one of my answers, I would say.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I fully agree with you, and perhaps in European context or in UK context, it may not be just supplying milk, but it can be something else, because I well remember there is a very big organization you must have heard in Sweden, Erics, called Erics in Sweden. And they earn millions and millions of euros every month by recycling second-hand products. And whatever money they make out of that, they fund it in third world countries for various projects. So we can find methods.
I didn't know that. What is that? Erics?
Erics, yeah. Erics.
Erics.
There is a organization called Erics.
That's good.
I'm going to, sorry, just I want to interrupt for a moment. We have 10 minutes left in our official time slot, and I really want to make sure we hear from Aneira as well.
I will move on to that third question, that is forming neighborhood parliament by Aneira. Aneira, no? Yes, Aneira. So it's a very, very, very important question to be answered, because that is a starting point everywhere. And how do we start? Once we decide to start, first we choose the area where we are going to start. We'll be very clear. We cannot be random, you know, we can start here or there. No, You first fix the area where you are going to start. Do a mapping of that area. Take a data of that area. How many people live and all that. How many families are there, and the status of the families, and the structure of the area, and all that. Do the mapping. Once the data is taken, choose a particular neighborhood where there are about 30 families. It could be a same building, one apartment where there may be 25 or 30 or 32 families living together. That whole apartment can be one single neighborhood parliament. So choose the area, do the data such a way that you can choose a particular neighborhood. Once you have chosen the neighborhood, then you'll have to take personal initiative of meeting every family in the neighborhood. Suppose in the particular neighborhood you have, say, about 45 families or above 40 or 50 families. Divide that again into two. In the same apartment, you may be having 50 families. And then you'll have to divide that into two segments, two neighborhoods. Could be that the first 10 levels or 5 levels can be one parliament, and the next 5 or 7 levels can be another parliament, something like that. So you have, for that only you'll have to take the data of the neighborhood. Once you fix that this is the neighborhood I am going to start with, start meeting every family. Start meeting everyone. Start building that personal relationship with every family. And as I explained earlier, there may be some difficulties in meeting people because we are used to a different way of lifestyle, and we may be living under the same roof. We may be using the same pathway. We are using the same water line. We are using the same drainage line. We are using the same electricity line, but we don't know each other. We are very far from each other. Only a wall may be dividing between two families, but the distance between these two families is very, very miles apart because they don't know each other. Now, the person who starts the initiative, start meeting every family. Introduce yourself. Don't, we need not immediately talk about, that this, we'll have to come together. No, not needed at all. Just to say hello, a smile, and just know each other. And have a sharing of coffee, tea, and something like that. In some cases, you may have to self-invite yourself in somebody's house. You'll have to self-invite yourselves because sometimes some people are hard. They don't want to talk to strangers. But the person who takes the initiative, the organizer, has to be talented enough with very good communication skills so that easily the relationship is built. Once the relationship among all these 30 identified 30 families is done, you can organize for a small neighborhood gathering. Create an occasion. No problem. It could be your birthday, and you need not wait until your birthday. You can choose some other day. There are so many international days. Being said, every day is some special day. So choose a particular day so that this day will be celebrated by all our neighbors coming together. So you invite, and there may be some little expenses made because of that. Because for everyone you'll have to give a piece of cake or coffee or whatever it is. Some little expenses is there, doesn't matter. But you create an opportunity where these people all can come together to look at each other and say hello, and slowly you start this community relationship within the neighborhood. Then in the next meeting, we can prod a question, okay, what is it if we can come together in a systematic structure so that we can help each other? We can, there are so many things you can do with. Then many will agree to that. Once the relationship is stronger, they will say, yes, we can have a common, a systematic structure that we can come together. Then you can introduce the idea of neighborhood parliament. What is neighborhood parliament? how to have the election, how each member has to be responsible for something to be elected as minister, what is the method we apply for the elections, and all can be shared. Then once it is shared with everyone's consent, you conduct the elections and the ministers are elected. And the number of ministers we have so many number of ministers. And for every issue, you have a minister. Every issue, you have a minister. And for certain issues which are very, very difficult to deal with, you may have deputy ministers also. Doesn't matter. For example, prime minister, you can have a deputy prime minister. Then parliamentary affairs minister who conducts, who calls for the meeting, keeps the record, writes the minutes, writes the resolution, keeps the record, does the correspondence and all that. He is called the parliamentary affairs minister. So you can have a deputy parliamentary affairs minister. Then there are so many issues. I can send you the details of what type of ministers we can have. And definitely we can also have minister for every sustainable development goal. There are 17 goals. One goal is poverty eradication. So we have finance minister to look after the poverty eradication. Then we have a health and well-being minister. Then we have a health minister here. Then we have quality education. We have education minister. So like that, we have number of ministers, and even it could be based on the SDG goals. But everyone has to be a minister, properly elected. After the election, you conduct a swearing in of the ministers, where the local elected politicians and local officials, government officials, all will be part of this swearing in ceremony, so that everyone in the area knows that there is a neighborhood parliament functioning here. So that, the collaboration of these government agencies and the elected representatives and the neighborhood parliament all will work together for the welfare of the neighborhood parliament. That's how it happens. And everyone will have an ID card which is signed by the swearing-in officer. Swearing-in officer in Tamil Nadu context, usually we have at the state level children parliament, high court judge comes and swears in the ministers. And he signs the ID card, which means it's a high court judge signing ID card means it's a very valuable document. When Swarna was elected as the finance minister, I remember, I think in 2010 or 2011, and that was the day that Thane cyclone happened.
It was 2013, sir.
Yeah, sorry, 13. And our High Court Judge Kanagaraj came and he was a swearing-in officer of the ministers, state level children parliament ministers. And for the district level, we have district magistrates to be the swearing-in officers. So that the signature which is given by that swearing-in officer in the ID card carries some weight, carries some value. With this ID card, with this person, this minister can go anywhere and introduce himself. I am the education minister for my neighborhood, with authentic document. The document is the signed signed ID card. And then the regular functioning of the parliament starts. Now, this is a starting point, Aneira.
So it's 4:30 right now here in the UK, and I've promised everybody a stop time right now. We still haven't heard from Aneira or Swarnalakshmi, and I would really like to be able to do that. Are you folks willing to give more time to this conversation right now, or do you need to go?
To be honest, I can do only another 15 minutes, and then I've got another meeting to go straight into.
Would 15 minutes be acceptable to you, Aneira?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, and Swarnalakshmi?
This is perfect.
Joseph?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, great. Well, Aneira,
Okay,
what
yes.
message do you see?
Thank you. That was fantastic. I mean, I've just been taking notes, and yeah, it really, I love the kind of, well, the way that it's been planned, because it's something that you can then, when something's got a clear structure, it's easier to kind of think, okay, how will this work in this setting? How can what can I, you know what you have to shape and craft, and I think that's fantastic. In terms of the questions, I just, yeah, what brings people together? I think fun does, which is why I really like the idea of a gathering of kind of when you're getting to know people to celebrate something. I think fun is a great way to build connections. And another way is also kind of an openness, I guess, a desire just to learn from others rather than push a certain agenda. So if you're going out and just kind of wanting to connect and that being the only purpose, then I think that can be very powerful. If I'm just going to go through several of them. So yeah, the poverty one, how do we engender responsibility if there's need in poverty? I think that, well, from my experience of having worked with a lot of young people in different contexts, I think when people are given responsibility and feel like someone's trusting in them, it's so transformative and powerful. And you see that with the kind of kids who might traditionally misbehave at school. Actually, if they're given a role, then they're like, yes, someone believes in me and someone has faith in me. So I think often kind of with the people where there is need in poverty, it's so important to give people opportunities of responsibility rather than it just being this kind of top-down thing, because that doesn't make people feel like they're worth anything. If it's always like my relationship is kind of, well, it makes it quite hierarchical, doesn't it? Kind of like this idea of this dependency. And actually, if you facilitate people into being independent, I think that's very empowering. Like the example with the cow and doing it like that. So I think there's, giving, putting faith in people and giving them responsibility, I think is the way to respond in those situations. And then collaboration. I mean, we need this Neighborocracy story as one of the stories that we share for this Trust the People XR project, and particularly kind of, I guess, the nuts and bolts of the details of how you've gone about setting up youth parliaments and using it as kind of case studies. So that is a clear way of collaboration in my head, in terms of where we can kind of just put it in one of our learning modules. And also as part of the story harvesting, we're asking kind of a series of 5 questions to lots of people who've been involved in community action, community building. And I'd love to ask you, Joseph, or you, Swarnalakshmi, those, like that would be amazing, or both. So yeah, collaboration immediately. God, like we just need to share your story and then let people's brains whir in the same time, in the same way that mine has been listening to you and thinking, oh, how would that work? I was like kind of chopping up my area into little bits and being like, is that 30 families? So yeah, the collaboration is already happening, and I can see ways for spreading the story further, and that's so exciting. So yeah, that's me. Thank you.
Thank you, Aneira. Swarnalakshmi, would you like to finish our round of answers?
Sure. So I would like to address all those 4 questions together with 2 important points and coinciding with 2 examples. For these questions, I think that number 1, systematization, and number 2, commencement from the budding population before they blossom up are the 2 answers. So let me explain the first point. So I said systematization. I think Sir Joseph and all the others in the call have beautifully explained what systematization is. So basically, when we organize things, I think we can collaborate, we can eradicate poverty, and we can make a good beginning. And number 2, if we begin from the budding population, that I mean is the so-called protective but actually productive population of children. So if anything and everything begins from children, then it would carry on until they become adults. I would like to share an example. For example, when I was young, I could still remember and cherish the moments of me taking an oath with all my parliamentarians that we would not use plastics, or at least we would make the minimum usage of plastics, for example, instead of using it a lot. We would try to reduce the use. And number two, we would try to use public transport rather than private transport a lot. And even that when the resolution was passed, it also had another important thing, that whenever we use private transportation, we have to provide the reason or the proper thing to the Prime Minister or the Minister, the Environment Minister, who is responsible for it. If both the ministers get to know that it is for a good reason, then they would appreciate us to to use the private transportation. And that's how I began. It was very hard for me. But later on, even after having been graduated from my childhood to the youthhood, I still have the practice. Sorry about it. I'm still putting it into practice. I'm trying to use carton boxes. I'm trying to be environment friendly as much as possible. And if everybody like me has to share and care beyond differences, if everybody like me has to care for the earth, and if everybody has to work together, I think the starting point must be from the childhood. I still could cite another example of starting from childhood continues even to my adulthood. After coming to UK, I did not have really much contacts with my neighbors or with my childhood friends to whom I was associated a lot and to whom I have collaborated with to formulate these neighborhood children's parliament. Recently, a couple of days ago, I received a call from them during this lockdown. And one of my mates, he really wanted to speak to me amidst of the adults who were playing and who were really intrigued to enjoy themselves. He came out from the adult population, immediately started giving importance to my call and attended my call, and we spoke for around an hour. And you know, the age of that boy is just 12 years. Even we started this neighborhood parliament when he was around 8 years, and I know him since he was 6 years. Even now, after having been reached the age of 12, we are still in contact. Same like another friend of mine also contacted me, who is right now, whom I know since we were in grade 6, and now she is doing her Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery. And now I'm here doing my master's, but we are still in touch. We're still in contact, discussing various aspects of society and how we could bring collaborations and how we could bring responsibility to ourselves, and how even we individually could be even more responsible to create a collective responsibility and to serve as an example for others. And I think, yes, coming back to my previous 2 points, the beginning has to be from the budding population, and it has to be systematized using this neighborocracy and neighborhoodization.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So this time, it seems to me like our biggest theme has been starting. And in addition to this theme of starting, there's also been this double theme of sort of universality and particularity. What connects all of us? How are we all the same? And also, you know, what are the particular ways that we see these universal qualities showing up in different places, different people? I want to give everybody a chance to sort of say a few last words, whatever your own sort of summing up might be. And also, I want to say thank you very much for all 4 of you showing up here today and participating and giving us a little extra time. I look forward to sharing the links with you so that you can share these with other people as well. And maybe we'll have more of these in the future. Joseph, any last words?
Yes. I'm so thankful to you, Nat and Aneira, Indra, and Swarna to be part of this discussion. And I feel we are moving in the correct direction. In the initial stage, we talked about the concept. Now we are slowly getting into the reality, the practicality of the neighborocracy, neighborhood parliaments and things like that. So that I see we are moving towards something concrete. So I am so happy about the way it is going on. And I am grateful to you all to be part of this. And let us work together to save the people and the planet. Let us sow peace and joy in every heart.
Thank you, Joseph. Indra, any last words?
Yeah, my final words would be stay in the moment. That I feel the necessity of staying in the moment, that I'm learning, but as I'm learning, I'm also lots more questions and a desire to experiment in new ways. Yeah, but to sit with that, to sit with the complex responses, and look forward to the next discussion. Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Nate, for just holding this space, because it's so very necessary. Thank you.
Thanks. Aneira, any last words?
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been kind of so interesting and uplifting, and I guess gives you sight of what's possible. And I think just kind of, as Indra had explained a bit to me about Neighborocracy, but just listening about it more, and the kind of the fact that it's small amounts of people just shows that it kind of like, yeah, small people can get together and bring about great change, and I think that's wonderful. So yeah, I kind of have really feel very kind of privileged to have listened to all of your ideas and to have met those of you that I haven't met before. So Joseph, Swarnalakshmi, and Nate, thank you very much. And Indra, thank you so much as well for kind of bringing me here. So
thank you for coming.
I look forward to the collaboration. Very excited.
Great. And Swarnalakshmi, do you want to conduct us out into our closing?
Yeah, so thank you very much for all for giving especially extra time. Thank you very much, Nate, Sir Joseph, Indra, Aneira, and everybody who are in the video call, and everybody who are listening to this video. And looking forward to meeting you again and share more and listen more. Let's be the change to make change. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's meet again with more questions.
Indeed.